trick. This is what we've got in front. Pontin Field, Jorgensen.
Hello, great to have your company on Rugby Heaven, on your home rugby stand sport for a massive episode, which means we've rolled in the big guns. Justin Harrison, Cameron Shepherd. Goog returning from last week. Shep, first time we've seen you in a few weeks. How you been, mate?
Mate, I've been great. It's lovely to be back. I missed you, boys.
You pumped up for today?
I am.
What about you, Goog? I'm feeling like... Are you just saving yourself for when we get stuck into it?
No, I'm just taking in all the green.
There's a lot of green, isn't there?
At the moment.
The human billiard table up here.
We're halfway there to the green and gold, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
massive episode.
We're a long way from the green and gold.
You two have both been there.
Let me give you
look,
and we're further away than you, probably.
Can you let me get to today's episode, Justin? A massive episode coming your way here at Rugby Heaven. We're going to preview a huge round 7 of Super Rugby Pacific. We're going to take a look at the best number 8s of all time as we continue to name the Super Rugby Legends 15. And then Test Rugby is back, baby. The Wallaroos in action for the first time in 2026. They'll be taking on Fijiana in Canberra tomorrow, a part of a massive double-header. There's that women's test match, and then it's into that age-old rivalry between the Waratahs and the Brumbies.
Now it's Jeremy Paul. Oh, what a goal! Joe Ruff scores the try. They will score! They're on fire! This is unbelievable.
The history is very important. When you walk down the tunnel, you see a lot of the Brumbies greats, Christian Leofano. Go down a bit further and you have guys like Jeremy Paul, George Gregan, Bernie.
Beauty from Lynagh.
Definitely does motivate you to go and try your hardest for the Brumbies, as so many people before you have done. And I think that's something that's been so instrumental in the Brumbies' history. It's just that hard work. You know, as soon as you put the jersey on, that you're obliged to do the same. Obviously, they've had some really successful years, but it's something we would like to replicate, and I think we have the team now to do it.
And for the first time in 26 years, the Brumbies beat the Crusaders in Christchurch.
To be able to go over there and get the win is something that's huge for everyone. Just to beat the Crusaders at home is something that's extremely hard to do. A huge milestone for us, but it's something that we have to continue to build on.
Oh, wow! Tool from nowhere!
The New South Wales Waratahs are extremely good team this year. Anytime we get to verse them, there's always that history.
Coming through is Walton! Riley gets the bounce! Try New South Wales!
Throughout the history of the two clubs, a lot of the Brumbies players came from rejects from the Waratahs that weren't really wanted. And I think in the beginning, that's what really spurred that rivalry. As it's gone on, I suppose, both teams understand how important it is. It's kind of like a bragging rights thing. I think there is a bit of genuine hate at times between the two teams. Obviously, Brumbies have been quite dominant the last few years.
And it's Glory Tool! Pollard is over again!
Waratahs are building really nicely and have a great team full of really good players.
Jorgensen! I don't know how he keeps doing it!
Always mates, but yeah, when the game's on, it does get quite fiery and competitive.
It's been a long run of outs for the men in sky blue against the men out of the capital. Can they snap that streak tonight?
It's one of the biggest rivalries in Super Rugby Pacific in the modern iteration of this competition, gentlemen. Everyone talks about Tar Week, whether you're a Brumbie or a Waratah, or I think even the other teams take notice of when the ACT take on New South Wales. Goog, you've played on both sides of it. Shep, you played for the Waratahs in a couple of games. There's a wonderful history here, Justin.
There's a huge history. You know that sport is a great recorder of history, but this one just adds a couple more pages to the script. There's always intrigue, there's always something that goes wrong, there's always something that goes right. There's always drama, and I don't know why or how. It is one of the truest forms of reality TV when you see the Tars v the Brums, and Tar Week is absolutely everything it's meant to be. It's just 6 days leading into a game and then a game. It's one of the best weeks of your sporting career.
Can I ask a quick question? We call it Tar Week. That's obviously from the perspective of the Brumbies. Do the Tars call it Brumbies Week? Or is it just Tar Week as well?
We did. It was huge at the Tars. I just realised I only played them twice. Never lost the Brumbies. How many Tars can say that, eh?
Me either. I never lost to the Brums.
There you go. We played
the same
together.
games.
Perfect. It's a massive week for the Tars as well, but it is bigger for the Brumbies. If you remember the history, a lot of the guys that weren't getting opportunities in New South Wales drove down the highway, started up at the Brumbies, and there was always a chip, wasn't there, Goog?
Yeah.
It was about showing everyone they were good enough to play at that level.
Well, there's history that reaches before professionals. So first ACT, Kookaburras, 1994 at Concord Oval, beat New South Wales Waratahs for the first time ever. 44-28.
Did you play in that game?
No, watched it. Come on. Spanked them. And the pioneers, talk about pioneers of the sport, Jeff Didier, Craig Sweeney, Murray Harley, the Harley boys, Adam Harley. All of those players were in that nucleus. Griggs was there, Bernie Larkham were cutting around. So then they take that into the 96, they get spanked by the Tars. And then this game in 97 where the Brumbies eviscerate.
Is this at the old
Waratahs.
SFS?
No. This is in Canberra.
Oh, this is in Canberra.
This is in Canberra. You know what confused you? It's sold out.
Yeah,
There's
it's a full
people
stadium.
everywhere. And
Is it
watching,
Monica?
What's it? No, it's when they had the grass there.
The old Bruce.
The ice stand. There's a young Goog with the bottle top hair.
Okay.
Now the thing about that game is I played about 9 minutes, felt like 100.
Yep.
And look at this. We win a penalty. What is it? 56-9.
9, yes.
We take the points. It's the last play of the
Current
game.
chairman of World Rugby
We'll
just wants to
we'll take
just
the points.
tighten the screws a
We'll
bit.
let the Waratahs stand around and watch us take points at 56-9. Yep.
Well, it's a good hit from Roffey
Had
as well,
a reasonable nudge at the liquid refreshment that night. Next day, because I hadn't played 20 minutes, I had to play for the Canberra Kookaburras against East at Monica.
Had to back up.
I'm not lying to you. Had a couple of schooners at lunchtime with Troy Coker and David Knox and a few of my fellow Brumbies players. Put my schooner down, picked up my bag and walked across the road.
All right, we'll save the rest of these
Where are you
stories
going?
for the Goog
I said,
stuff
mate, I'm
special.
playing.
Because we've got some favourite moments. That's Goog's 97, and I'm sure that was hard for him to pick. 2005 for you, Shep. Take us through it.
Yeah, well, underachieved in 04, so headed down in 05.
There's another Goog.
There we go. Wow.
Really, really strong Waratahs side. We got a pretty frosty reception when we arrived.
It was so bad running out. I remember
Wasn't
that.
it?
And so you were playing in this game, Shep.
Yeah, I was on the bench.
Okay.
That's Lockie Mackay. Had an unbelievable season in 2005.
Yeah.
That's George Gregan
Moon boots.
slipping off the back of his boots
Moon
there.
boots Maguire. How good.
It came with a lot of energy, a lot of emotion. There was a huge collision between Chris Whitaker and George Gregan at the back of a line-out where they actually broke Griggs' leg, if you remember. And there was a lot of just emotion and passion in that game, wasn't
Surprising. I love seeing the later in career Goog there out in the sky blue jersey, and just the grin you had when you ran out onto the field.
Well, it was 2 years in a row. I think that's probably what
at
you were
the
saying.
old Bruce Stadium. All right, so that was 2005, the Waratahs' first win in Canberra.
That's right.
My favourite moment, and it was hard to pick because I wanted to pick Goog's try for the Brumbies against the Waratahs.
I know you did.
But he's just been pipped by the great James Slipper, who continues to rack up milestone after milestone. A couple of years ago, he scored a double.
Yeah.
The loose head prop bags a double against the Waratahs. And he had to run a little bit of distance for them too. And he's only scored 10 in his entire 203 Super Rugby game career.
Mate,
This was two of them.
When you're a tight forward, that's a lot of distance.
Yeah.
They're both great tries.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Did it sound like I was being
You
disrespectful?
were surprised.
Oh, often they just sort of like pick and go from
Mate.
You know what I
metre
love with
out
the first
or-
try? Sometimes people that don't score that often, they get to the try line and they're not really sure what to do. Do I put it down? Do I dive? It turns into a bit of both.
Yeah.
He actually swanned out on
Yeah,
that
no,
one.
he knew what to do.
That's lovely.
It's like a training run try, captain's run try.
He's had some good try celebrations in his time, old Slips, from his very limited opportunities to do so. So the next chapter in this massive rivalry is written tomorrow night from Canberra, ACT Brumbies and New South Wales Waratahs from 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time on your home rugby stand Sport. This rivalry has got so much history to it, but I feel like there's an extra element this year because there's some familiar faces who are now in a new place playing for the Waratahs. They are the once were Brumbies. There's the coach, Dan McKellar. He's recruited Jack Debrasini, who's come up from the Brumbies in the off-season, Pete Samu's previously been at the Brumbies, and Flower Fainga as well. Just adds a little bit of extra spice to Tar Week this week, doesn't it, Chip?
Yeah, mate, it does. And Goog knows all about that. I think they're going to get a lot of attention. Someone like Jack Debrasini really stands out to me in that group, not taking anything away from Falafayanga or Pete Samu, but having watched him play last week, he's going to get a lot of attention. He threw his hand around, the chip and chase over the top. He was very expansive in the way he played. The Brumbies obviously would have seen a lot of that over the last couple of seasons. So he's going to get a lot of attention, I think, in the early stages of the game this weekend.
A couple of changes that Stephen Larkham, the Brumbies coach, has made for this week. David Feliuai is back into the starting 15. Lockie Shaw as well, who's been really impressive. This is your area of expertise in the locks. What have you made of Lockie Shaw and his sort of rise to more regular starting opportunities in 2026?
I think his robustness. He's got a wonderful skill set above his shoulders, which is really important. I mean, the second rowers are probably one of the few positions in the field, on the field of rugby, that you need to win the game between hips and ground, but you also need to win the aerial battle, shoulders up. A lot of the times, line outs, everything's happening above your head, kickoffs, judging that flight of ball and securing possession in a really unstable environment. Lockie Shaw's brought some calmness and authority in a robust manner, and his work rate. You look at the game, when you watch the game on Friday night, look at the amount of time that he is not on the ground doing nothing and the amount of time he's searching for an involvement into the game, and he's not just parking up at the back of a ruck and touching the paint. He is actually part of one or two first arriving or ball carry or first tackler, meeting impact with impact. That's a very good player to have on your team.
And a change in the back line, referenced David Feliuai as well. Ollie Sapsford, who's a bit of a Mr. Fix-It for Stephen Larkham in the Brumbies. He returns to the wing. Having to make way for him is Kai Oates, who I think has been quite impressive in his first few games of Super Rugby in his last two starts. Great problem to have. But just bringing probably more of an experienced campaigner, Shep, in Ollie Sapsford back in.
He's a big body as well. Let's not forget. Look at the size of him. Can ball play, supports well, doesn't shirk the hard stuff. I think he's extremely valuable. He also can break a tackle. And this weekend, that's going to be the key. Defence is going to be on. People are going to be fronting up. You need people that are able to create line breaks, break tackles, create those second chances in behind the line, and I think he's a real good one for the Brums.
You talk about Andy Muirhead as glue to that Brumbies group. He's the Swiss Army knife of the whole team. He just slots in and he contributes and he adds and changes the way the game is being played every time he's around the ball. He's a very, very good player.
Recipe for disaster if you mix a Swiss Army knife and glue. Like, that's only going to go one way, and that's wrong, but maybe not.
Things I wasn't allowed to mug around with.
Completely unsurprising. Speaking of Swiss Army knives, the Waratahs have recalled one of theirs, Andrew Kellaway. We know he can play fullback wing. He can play and has played outside centre as well. Just his second game this year in 2026. Bit of form, a little bit injury as well. But his one game previously, Shep, was at fullback. This week, he's starting on the wing for Dan McKellar.
Yeah, I think they need him, right, to come into the side. I think lacking a little bit of experience with Joseph Suoli'i out, he's going to come in and just add a little bit more foundation in their back three. He's a very, very good communicator. I think without taking away from the rest of his play on the field, he really does organise well. And as we see here, he supports well. I think his kicking game is also going to be very, very important to the Waratahs this weekend. They haven't kicked the ball consistently enough in 2026, and hopefully Andrew Kellaway can settle that. What
about the ginger ratio, the Ranger ratio in the back three there with Sid Harvey at fullback and Andrew Kellaway on one wing? Jorgo sitting pretty there. No red hairs to notice.
Well,
should we move on to the next?
We need to get off that.
They've kept the same centre combination, the Waratahs, that they were made to play with last week at short notice. Tristan Riley, who was meant to start at 13, was ruled out, and so they had a reshuffle. Joey Walton went to outside centre and Lawson Crichton started at 12. Riley is back, but he's back via the bench, and they're sticking with Lawson at 12 and Joey Walton at 13. What did you make of them last week? And I guess the challenge that lays ahead for them.
Well, it's a positive combination. The challenge that the Waratahs have got is shared experience and cohesion. They need to keep combinations together. They've spun the chocolate wheel a couple of times. 12 and 13, you look at those clips you just saw against Kellaway with Kells. So 12 and 13, Suoli'i running block lines, occupying 1.5, two defenders in the middle, then releasing inside and outside him. That's the key for the 12 and 13, Shep. To give Kells some chime in, to give Jorgo some green space to attack. The 12 and 13 combination, they've got to stay together more often on the field. They played well against the Blues for large parts of that match, and they weren't just passengers, they were dominant in their skill set.
Between them, they carried the ball 26 times. Now, that's a lot of carries. The unfortunate thing was there was only one line break and 0 defenders beaten in that 26, which shows that they're probably just a little bit too direct. They've got to find a way to get to a shoulder, create a little bit more space in behind. The biggest issue, as we know, and it's been spoken about all week for the Waratahs, was just their inability to finish. They set up so many opportunities, so many try-scoring chances, and no matter what you do in the lead-up, if you can't convert, it means nothing.
That comes with cohesion and time on field, right? Because quite often the specialist backup players or just the intuition is all about familiarity as well. You've trained together a lot of times. You know that Jorgo likes to do a double step and go off his left more than his right. So you probably position yourself left before you do right for support play. A couple of passes went to grass. Debrasini goes, were they forcing it too much? Possibly. Did they lose patience? Yeah, maybe too. Have they spent enough time on the field together? Probably not. So the more the Waratahs are together, the more they are exposing themselves to different environments and sharing that experience, they are absolutely going to improve. We know we're frustrated. We know that they're not where they should be with the signings they've got. But that's the key. Keep them on the field together. Don't start spinning the chocolate wheel.
Yeah, I guess they'd be buoyed by the fact that they are at least creating plenty of opportunities, and there was plenty of those created, particularly in that first half against the Blues. OK, tomorrow night, the Waratahs are looking to end a 3-game losing streak in this year's competition and actually an 8-game losing streak against the Brumbies at GIO Stadium in Canberra. Tip to win. Let's go with you first.
The Brumbies will win, I think. It'll be a really physical and emotional game at times, I think, but I think the Brumbies are going to be too strong.
Brums, a couple of yellow cards, Brums, a few stinks.
A couple of yellow cards in general. The Brumbies are going to get a couple of yellow cards and still win the game.
Yellow cards included.
You think there's going to be stinks?
Might have the host, might have
I think there will be. I think there's a lot of emotion.
I've just been given a good tip to stay away from Justin during broadcast of this game.
Get next to me in the blue. I can't fight for anything. It's all smoke and mirrors.
Well, I don't want to have to do any heavy lifting, mate. You don't have to do any heavy lifting at Stan Sport. Sign up via the QR code that's been on your screen and watch every moment of Super Rugby Pacific live and on demand, exclusive to Stan Sport. There's plenty of other big matches coming your way in round 7, including the Queensland Reds, who are on a 4-game winning streak, and they'll take on the top of the table Hurricanes.
Right, the inside ball to Kalani Thomas. McLaughlin Phillips has caught them napping. And desperate defence required by the Drua, but they can't hold them out.
So the great thing was the victory, but right throughout this match at times, they wouldn't have thought they were playing well, but they just stayed in the fight.
Yeah, it just seems there's no dead causes for this Reds team. It's a sign of a team that really wants to win.
And finally, a win for the Queensland Reds in Fiji.
They are red hot at the moment, the Queensland side, on a 4-game winning streak, but they face their biggest challenge of the season so far, taking on the top of the table Hurricanes. Catch that 2 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time on Saturday afternoon, live and exclusive on Stan Sport. A couple of changes for Les Kiss. We know he rested a few guys last week and they recorded an historic victory over the Drua in Fiji. Louis Wershon comes back in to start at 9, Kalani Thomas to the bench. And there's a big name on the bench here in Tom Lynagh, who we know has missed the beginning of this season, just managing a return from injury, some soft tissue stuff. It seemed like he was maybe another week or 2 away, but he gets his opportunity first time in 2026 via the bench, Shep.
Yeah, and through the bench I think is the best way for him. He hasn't played much rugby, and fly half is a really difficult position to just instantly go back into the starting lineup. He'll come on late in the game. You never know where it's going to be at, but I think just some early touches and just starting to get his rhythm back is going to be the biggest thing for Tom Lynagh. He's certainly got the talent. We know he's a great young talent, but, he's been out of the game for a little while. So, you've got to balance into it.
Last game, it's actually amazing to look at that and realise his last game was for the Wallabies against Argentina up in Townsville in September last year. So he has been out of the game for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been out of the game. But Tom Lynagh is a rugby player through and through. He's an exceptional, talented, international, world-class 10. Let's get that. You don't lose that by sitting on the couch for a month or 2, and he hasn't done that either. He's worked hard. Tom Lynagh's challenge is to just make sure that he's comfortable in all those contact situations, make sure he's familiar with the pace of the game. And preservation in terms of knowing when to go and when not to go, stick your head there and not there, and not be a passenger in the game. And we know that he's none of that. So I have no issue at all with the time it's taken for Tom to come back and how the manner that they're bringing him back. I think it's commendable. He's clearly being managed quite well, and he's an exceptional player. He's from first touch to last touch, he will pick up where he left off.
Yeah, and he will come off via the bench when they decide, I imagine, to change things with Harry McLaughlin-Phillips starting at 10. Carter Gordon was rested last week. He's managing a lower leg injury this week. He's not available for selection. Fraser McWright, who was also rested, rotated out last week, is back this week, and we're back into the role of the captain of the Queensland Reds as well. And he's got an incredible head-to-head up against Duplessis Karifi from the Hurricanes, who, when on the field, is one of the great players in this competition. Goog, Fraser has started the year in his first season in charge as captain, just on fire. Like, the standard he set seems to get higher and higher.
The beautiful thing about the evolution of Fraser McWright is his maturity, and maturity doesn't come because of title. It becomes because of actions. And Fraser McWright looked at his discipline, looked at his body shape, his strength and his sustainability on the field. Now, every open side looks like they've been produced by a zipper factory. Their head looks like it's seen a lot of war, right? But Fraser McWright, I'm not talking about what he looks like. We're talking about the way he plays the game and the way that he leads. Getting given the captaincy can sometimes be a burden, and you change type and you feel like you've got to fill moments of silence with some words, and you're a motivator. None of those apply to Fraser McWright. He goes out onto the field, he brings that red swagger, and he brings a real air of authority and presence now on the field that everyone reacts to.
Yeah. And I think you compare him to someone like Duplessis Karifi, it's not a match-up like you would see two 10s go against each other or two 9s. 7s are very much out on their own adventures. They'll cross paths at the occasional breakdown. Karifi plays a lot tighter, and if you'll see here in his highlights, most of his work is done down the middle corridor of the field. You won't see him out in the outside 15 channel as much as someone like Fraser McWright. But there's two things that I think that they're really similar in. It's their work rate around the park. They'll cover almost every single blade of grass, fighting for the ball defensively, and then in the defensive line, some of the most brutal defenders, quick to get someone to ground, quick to get on the ball. If you're not arriving quick at the breakdown when he's the first tackler, you're in trouble, or first arrival. So it's going to be a great little matchup between
I
those
think
two.
From a team perspective, it's a great match. You know, there's a lot on the line. The Hurricanes top of the table, the Reds sitting in the top 4, wanting to continue their win streak, get themselves to the top of the table. But on the individual level, those two going head-to-head is worth the price of admission, absolutely. The Hurricanes, we know, Shep, are dangerous across the board. And even when they make changes and they promote someone like Balin Sullivan to start on the wing from the bench, they do not lose anything. And even when Callum Harkin is out because of concussion protocol this week, you bring in Balin Sullivan, you got Morby at 15, you got Ruben Love at 10. You just think, wow, when you see that line.
The depth is incredible. Let's remember as well, Brett Cameron and Harry Godfrey are out. They're normal first-string fly halves. They're very lucky that they got the rest of their squad fit. And Balin Sullivan's unbelievable. 4 tries last year against the Chiefs in one game. Unbelievable finisher. And if they need to, they can move him closer and move him into 13 or 12 if they really have to as well. They're a very, very sharp team. They're by far deserving of being the number one team in the competition at the moment, in my opinion.
Tip to win. A big trip for the Reds to go across the ditch and take on the Hurricanes on their home patch. Who wins this?
Canes.
Canes.
It's a real deal this year.
Yeah? No, they look it.
Yeah, I think the Hurricanes are actually going to win the comp. I think they're just humming along so well. The way that they work between the forwards and backs, their versatility amongst players, they're a great side. They'll win this, unfortunately. But I think the Reds, this will be a good matchup
they'll push
to
them.
see how
they'll absolutely push them.
How they compete with the top of the comp.
Yeah, there you go. 2 tips for the Reds, but a tough game. Massive one, that one on your home rugby stand sport. Sign up via the QR code that's been on your screen throughout this episode of Rugby Heaven. Coming up, the Western Force are back in action. They had a bye, they had a long road trip over in New Zealand. They are back home and they take on the Chiefs. And one of their star signings, Darby Lancaster, is loving life in the West.
I'm like a star in the sky.
Darby Lancaster.
Yeah, I'm feeling too alive. I know that I'm great, let me remind you.
The bounce is awkward, the footwork's brilliant, and Darby Lancaster gets the opening points.
Look at me shining.
Now there's an overlap here, Lancaster, and he does the job. Darby Lancaster, a little in and out, and that's a lovely try scored by the Western Force.
Exactly what you want from your outside one-on-one opportunity.
Look up in the sky, see the stars. You see the stars. Yeah.
Now the Force have got a real chance out wide, and as far as Lancaster, and in he goes, and just like that, the Force have struck back.
The trip across the Nullarbor certainly seems to be suiting Derby Lancaster, the beekeeper.
The beekeeper.
The beekeeper,
there's a whole hive of bees and all sorts of, just a swarm over the west coast.
Mate, the hive for him at the moment is over the try line.
Yeah,
he is getting himself across the stripe.
He is.
With regularity.
Yeah, he's playing good.
Big challenge for Derby and the Western Force this weekend. As I mentioned, they had a 3-week trip over in New Zealand. Then they had a bye, so they haven't played back at home for a while, and they do so on Saturday night, taking on the Chiefs, whom, Cameron Shepherd, they have not beaten in all competition since 2014, and it was actually at HBF Park, 18-15, 12 years ago. There is history here that is significantly against the Western Force.
Yeah.
But it felt like their trip in New Zealand, they showed... I know they came away with 2 losses and a win, but it showed like there was some signs there of life and competition.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought they played very, very well against the Highlanders in particular. This game was very memorable. Matty Hodgson scored a double, the Honey Badger getting over there in the corner. You know, historically, the Force, even when I was there, we never had much luck against the Chiefs. I don't know why. It's just a team we never seem to be able to get on top of. So it could be a tough one for the Force, but I think they have shown some great signs. They learned a lot when they played the Brumbies in round 2. The Blues in round 2 about what not to do against strong New Zealand opposition. I think structurally the side is looking a little bit better now with George Bridge at 13. KB back into the side as well for a little bit of experience and another ball player. I think they're quite a balanced side, and they certainly will put up a good fight against the Chiefs.
What I wouldn't love to see the Honey Badger and the Beekeeper in the same side. Wouldn't that be amazing? All the analogies and metaphors and different puns that you could come up with, Justin Harrison, would be fantastic. But from the sweet stuff to the hard stuff, one change in the starting pack from Simon Cron. Ekuasi comes in to start at number 8. Just gives Justin the Force a little bit more punch, a bit more starch.
Oh, absolutely. All of that and some. He wins the ground warfare. He carries strong at line when there's needing to be some sort of carry into a dark place, and seems to generate pace off a repair carry. Quite often that's very difficult because you're carrying at teeth and you're carrying at a 2, maybe 3-man tackle. He generates speed off that first carry. Very important to what the Force are trying to do.
Yeah.
They've got a good forward pack that can win the ball, but they need some punch off that middle part of the game to free up that back line. Bridge is linking, Beale's starting to come in, the Beekeeper's starting to benefit. That's what we've seen on that tour overseas, haven't we?
It's a really good point because I think the biggest issue that the Force have had against playing Kiwi teams is trying to play that style of up-tempo. Now, the Chiefs, we know, are more up-tempo than anyone else in the competition. You kick poorly down Damian McKenzie's throat, they're going to start running at you. All of a sudden, the momentum of the game's really going to change on the Force. Having people like Ekuasi, when you just need to slow down, punch your way slowly when you're in their 22 and control the ball, he's vital in that situation.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are looking at this game thinking, is this where we get to see Zach Lomax play his first game in professional rugby? Simon Cron and the Western Force have decided just not yet. There's no need to throw him into the deep end just for the sake of maybe a few extra people through the gates and putting him on the park the first opportunity they can get.
Just for the sake
of a few extra people through the gates.
We don't need a few extra people through the gates.
Yeah, but at the expense of someone's, their performance on the field.
In a professional environment.
Their performance on the field.
Mate, if you've got an Easter egg sitting on the shelf as expensive as that, you're unwrapping it and eating it, let me tell you. But there is a balance, I get it, because no one's bigger than the game and no one gets rushed into the game, but let's play Captain Obvious here.
But if that Easter egg has to ripen and it's not yet ripe, do you just eat it anyway?
There was not a real egg. It's chocolate egg, in case you missed the metaphor.
I'm trying to elaborate on the metaphor and give it context.
I think get him on the dirt. Get him on the dirt for a lot or a little. He's going to have another part of the experience. And you know what? They've come back from New Zealand. They probably need a bit of an energy and a new voice. And he's got presence.
I kind of agree. I think they need to get him in sooner rather than later. If he's not in this week, I think he'll definitely be in next week. How that reshuffles the back line is going to be a big
someone's
question.
got to miss out.
Where does Kunzel go? Because I actually would love to see Kunzel play a little bit more at 13. But, yeah. It's up to Simon Cron, but Zach Lomax, I think they need to get him in sooner rather than later.
I notice you've already put a line through Bailey Kunzel. He's the one who misses out for Zach Lomax.
No, I like Bailey Kunzel.
But you just
want Bailey Kunsel to maybe move into the centres.
George Bridge gets
what you do with
you drop an All Black.
Not playing paintball.
No, I didn't say that. No, did I? I don't know. I just maybe we've got to move everyone around.
It sounded like you did say that. Look, plenty of changes for the Chiefs. Plenty of them injury enforced, but a bit like what we were talking about with the Hurricanes before, it doesn't really matter who they put in their side. It's impressive, the depth. You move Damien McKenzie back to fullback. Josh Jacomb plays 10 this week. And look, this is a really interesting one for me. Leroy Carter, who came from 7s over to 15s last year, became an All Black via playing on the wing. Shep is going to start his first game at outside centre at 13.
Yeah.
How do you think he's going to go? Because we know that's a difficult position, particularly defensively.
So in reshuffles this season and a little bit last season, they did actually move him into 13. So he does have experience playing there, although not playing and starting at 13. It's a really tough position. If you don't know rugby well, that's no problem. But defending at 13 is very tough because you've got to worry about the centres coming short and jamming. And then you've also got to worry about the outside backs flowing out the back. So the decisions you make are very critical to the whole backline defence of your team. Now, the Chiefs have generally been a bit of an up-and-in defensive team, so maybe they're just going to tell him to sort of jam and play. And that could go one way or another, I suppose. But in attack, I think he's outstanding. He's unbelievably athletic. He passes the ball well, he supports well. So I wouldn't be too concerned about Carter at 13.
All right, who wins this game? Do the Western Force end a 12-year drought against the Chiefs, or do their 2026 run of losses continue?
I don't think they're going to. I think the Chiefs are going to play a different style. Very combative, very aggressive. It's going to be a low-scoring game, take risk out of it. Chiefs will just get it.
Pippin.
Yeah. I'm the opposite. I think they're going to start to throw the ball around
glad
a
you're
lot.
opposite, Shep.
Who's going to throw the ball?
I think everyone. I think it'll be quite a high-scoring game,
Yeah, right.
but I think the Chiefs they like playing over in Perth. Damien McKenzie's going to be excited playing 15. Could be a bad day for the Force. I think the Chiefs will win, and they'll win well.
That is rare.
Did he start?
That is a rare point of view.
It seemed like you started with Force and then talked yourself out of it.
No,
Maybe.
Okay.
no.
So
I think it's
all right.
yeah.
No, that's it.
Can I go back to hosting and directing us to the next topic?
Sure.
I'll do that. All right.
Okay.
You've both tipped the Chiefs. We'll park that game. We'll move on to the next one. Moana Pacifica, just from Justin Harrison. Moana Pacifica taking on the Highlanders. This is a huge game for Moana, who are really battling this year. Started the season outstandingly against the Drua in Fiji, and it's been tough running ever since then. But I tell you what, Shep, the Highlanders, they have faltered in recent weeks, and they had a big loss to the Hurricanes last weekend. So this is a huge game for them, just to try and arrest some momentum back in their favour at the very least.
Yeah, big physical encounter. Moana Pacifica, when they turn it on, they play well. So this is going to be a tough game. I still think the Highlanders will be a little bit too strong, a little bit too much talent across the park. What do you reckon, Goog?
Yeah, Highlanders.
Easy.
Not easy. Well, easy tip.
Sorry. It was an easy segment. That's what I meant. And the last game of round 7 of SwiftX Super Rugby Pacific, the Blues up against the Fijian and Drua. The Blues obviously were very impressive in the last 20 against the Waratahs and ended up recording quite a comfortable, at least on the scoreboard, victory over the Waratahs. Return home to take on the Drua. We saw the wonderful story last week of Peyton Spencer, the son of Carlos Spencer, a Blues great, an All Blacks legend, make his debut in Super Rugby for the Blues last week. He's going to make his first start at fullback this weekend.
Yeah, and I don't think they were expecting it to happen so quickly. They've got a lot of injuries, the Blues, and I think the biggest concern will be, personally, I think they'll win the game. They'll win it convincingly, but they just don't need any more major injuries at the moment within that squad. A lot of guys gone down. Great for Peyton Spencer, unbelievable. Almost scored as well on debut, but yeah, they've got a lot on the sidelines at the moment, the Blues, and if they want to run at the finals again this year, they need to start keeping people fit.
What a great subplot this is. The amount of father-son, sons coming through. There should be a father-son rule coming into Super Rugby, absolutely. It's, lighting the flame for generations to come to fall in love with the game. That's the motto for Super Rugby. That's the theme.
Like
and that's what it is.
A couple of linguinis pulling on the Brumbies jersey one
happy
day.
Days. 12%.
12%. That's double market value, isn't it?
They can't play league, so they'll be undervalued.
Double figures.
They won't get the
You've
riches.
tipped the Blues, although
I've tipped the
noting that
Blues.
there's a lot of changes.
Yeah.
Blues drew a Goog.
Blues.
Blues, easy. Massive weekend, round 7, Swiftex Super Rugby Pacific. Catch all of it by signing up to Stan Sport via the QR code on your screen now. Now, home of rugby, Stan Sport, Super Rugby Pacific is live and exclusive. Stay with us. We're going to preview a few things that are going on around the grounds, talk some of the big news headlines in recent days and weeks, and we're going to look at some of the greatest number 8s to ever play in Super Rugby.
Kefu, 10-metre line. Big charge by Kefu.
There have been some outstanding number 8s who have played in the Super Rugby competition in its 30 years of history, and your chance to help select the number 8 for the Legends 15 is live now. You can do so via the QR code that's up on your screen. Number 8, the last position in the forward pack. All other 7 positions have been confirmed. Richie McCaw was the open side flanker. Shock horror was announced last week. There's a real star-studded... Yeah, look, I'm with you on George Smith. But anyway, there's a real star-studded choice of nominees for number 8. I think it's clear-cut for me, but I'm just going to hold my powder dry, keep it dry for now. There's a few to choose from. Is there a clear best number 8 for you, Justin?
There's iconic names. Zinzan Brook, the human Easter Island statue. That is, you can't.
Brilliant.
You can't.
That's great.
You just can't go past his name.
Mate.
Yeah.
You know Easter's next weekend. You should have saved all your Easter jokes, eggs and islands for next week.
There was a bloke really early, Gary Toshman. He was amazing, but he didn't play enough super. Toto Kefu.
Yeah.
Uncle Kefi is the greatest number 8 to watch and play with.
And Goog would know. He's got that guy strapping right in on the rear end every time you go into a scrum.
Look at him go.
Look at him. Just a freak.
Yeah. Look, I'm with you, Goog, and not that my vote counts.
Well, it should.
But I think
Todai
Kefu is the clear winner for this.
Kef was brilliant. Do you know one name that he was a little bit of taken out of the same mould as Kef was Wycliffe Palu?
Well, he's a nominee. Yeah, he was in the Waratahs Legends 15.
Just probably a few too many injuries just let Cliffy down.
Third story. Kef Byron Bay Sevens one year was just there as a spectator and just to throw a bit of love to the rugby crowd. They needed someone to play. He said he didn't bring his boots. So he got some electrical tape and taped a pair of beachcomber thongs to his feet and played in beachcomber thongs.
He did it, yeah.
And he was pretty much the best player on the field. There you go, the defence rest.
Yeah, that's cool.
So who should you vote for and why it should be Todai
Kefu? If you don't,
that is the reason why.
ID checking your address and coming around to spark you up.
Yes, so you can do so. It's a fan vote to select that Legends 15. Yeah. This is the last position in the forward pack. Round out that half of the side and then we'll start getting
we want to see more Aussies in there as well, so get voting.
Yeah, totally. There's some other significant names too. I just run through quickly. Kieran Reid, who won plenty of titles at the Crusaders. Rob Valentini, notably deserves to be there. Pierre Spies is the wild card.
Freak.
He was an absolute freak.
Linford Christie.
But it's
Linford Christie.
It's got to be Todai Kefu, all right? And if you talk to anyone and they say anything else, they're wrong, OK? And we'll send Justin Harrison their way. Look, there's been a bit of news around in rugby. We love talking about some of the headlines. There's some player movement, players coming and going, we know. Unfortunately, the Waratahs are going to farewell centre, and one of their leadership group players, in Joey Walton, at the end of this season, he's signed a 2-year deal to go to Montauban over in France.
Valet track around the field.
There you go. Is this just a little bit of the movement we should expect, particularly in that area of a team, given that we know Angus Crichton is coming across from Rugby League?
Yes and no. I think the fact that he's just played 50 games for the Waratahs, you say at 50 games, you're probably really starting to hit your straps. He's been one of the most consistent and most regular picked in the back line, maybe...
Certainly over the last 2 seasons.
Over the last few seasons, along with Andrew Kellaway. I'm a little bit surprised to see him go. But with that being said, if he's been told that, look, Crichton's coming in, he wants to play 12, there's obviously a lot of speculation around where he will play, but he has played there. That's where he played at school. Maybe Walton's just said, OK, well, maybe this is my time to go and look at overseas and do something else. He can always come back. He's still a young man. But, it would make sense if that's
the risk for the Tars that I'm seeing, and we're already seeing a little bit with Joseph Suolii's injury, is they're light on for depth at centre.
At 12 in particular, yeah.
In the wake of Suolii's injury, they started George Pullman at 13, and then they had Tristan Riley there, and on the weekend Tristan Riley was in late injury scratching, and Joey had to move to 13, Lawson Crichton, who can fill a role at 12.
But he's not
normally
a 12,
a 10 or
is
15.
he? Right? Yeah.
Yes, you might have a Angus Crichton, who's a big name, big signing, Joseph Suolii, who's a Wallaby, big name, big signing. But if either one of them get injured and now Joey's gone, they're starting to get a bit light in depth in the midfield.
Well, he hasn't left it yet. So there's still some people playing that we haven't found. There's still some pathway players. The age group Waratahs team are very, very strong. So some of those players will come up now. Average super contract, 2.5, 3 years tops. That's just reverting to type now. And professional careers don't last long. They don't last long when you've got leverage. Joey's got some leverage. He's a great, experienced Super Rugby player. We know now that RA have a slightly different view on where players are coming from to maybe have a swing at gold jerseys. We also know that players are going over in prime of career and coming back better and contributing to Super Rugby. Yeah. So it's not a disaster story. We're not ripping out the violins, but absolutely, when we lose players that have got shared experience on the Waratahs, that is a pathway issue that we need to address below rather than top and recruit in.
A couple other news pieces from this last week. A couple of coaching appointments. Let's start across the ditch, shall we, with the All Blacks. Dave Rennie's coaching team has now taken shape, and probably the biggest name amongst his assistants is Tana Umaga, the current head coach of Moana Pacifica. He's an All Blacks legend. He's taking on the role of defence coach. And I imagine, Shep, there'll be a fair amount of responsibility on his shoulders around the cultural piece within the All Blacks as well.
It's exactly what I was going to say. If you're worried about the culture of the All Blacks, bring in someone like Tana. He is going to bring that group together. The stories that have come out of his coaching and what he does for groups and the way that he brings and unites everyone, I think he's a perfect pick for Dave Rennie.
Yeah, having him in there for some reason, not so much from a tactical point of view, and I don't say that as disrespect to him at all. Having him in there worries me for what this means for the All Blacks and their aura and their connection and their cultural piece, which has probably been a part of their game in the last 18 months or so that people have questioned and they never questioned before. I think bringing Tana Umaga is a huge tick of approval in that area of their game. Just notably, Scott McLeod, former All Blacks defensive coach, is coming this way, and he's going to join Les Kiss's coaching team with the Wallabies after July. So a little win for Australia over New Zealand. They don't come too often there.
Is it?
Isn't it?
Well, it'd be a win if it was an Australian coach.
OK, take us through it.
Well, I just Captain Obvious. There's a lot of good coaches, I think.
Have good coaches up to that level been overlooked?
Well, Peter Hewitt. There you go.
Is he up to being an international defensive coach?
Absolutely. Just because someone's an ex-All Black doesn't mean they're a good international coach.
No, I didn't say that at all.
Well, you started with that.
No, I'm asking you questions so you can elaborate for our viewers.
I think we probably could examine the Australian pathway coaching system, probably at that top level. Best person for the job. So I don't know the candidate list, but you just wonder if there's time now for us to. If we're parochial about player selection, let's do the same for coaches.
This sounds like a great topic for Inside Line.
Without knowing the process, it would be really interesting to see who else was on the list.
Yeah, who knows?
I would love to know that because it wasn't shared.
Or is it just head coach picks his team, which is fine. Just let us know.
Yeah, there we go. Well, we will find out in due course just what he's like as a coach when he takes over with Les Kiss and the Wallabies after the 3 tests in July. We know Test match rugby is returning to Australian soil tomorrow. The Wallaroos in action against Fijiana down at GIO Stadium in Canberra. Stay with us because we're going to preview our first taste of Test rugby in Australia in 2026.
Jesse Miller, try to the Wallaroos. Holtz, Caitlin Holtz. There's Stewart, the try scoring clean-up is over. Here it is for Smith. Smith holds it up. Smith's in for the try. Take me out, read me out, I'll be the only one you want to. Argue with, no argue out, I'm not here to waste time, so let's go. There's the try for the cool captain. Kapani, close to the line, scores the try.
How great is it to have Test match rugby back on Australian soil? The Wallaroos taking on Fijiana. You'll catch it on 9 and Stan Sport from 4:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time on Friday. Part of a massive doubleheader down there in Canberra, gentlemen. Of course, it's this Wallaroos Test match, and then after that, it's the Brumbies and the Waratahs. Sam Needs, still the interim head coach of the Wallaroos, has named 6 debutants in his matchday 23, 3 of them in the starting 15, all of them in the back line. One of them, Goog, is a 7-star, a young 7-star in Sydney Taylor, who will get the chance to start in the 13 jersey.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity for Sydney Taylor to show us what it looks like to be, let's call it hybrid player, bridging between 7s and 15s program. Australian Women's Sevens program, one of the most successful national programs in our sporting ecosystem across all sports, and the first full-time female centralised program. And that is really starting to produce some amazing athletes and amazing rugby players. And now to bring them into a 15s environment, and to see that transferable skill across, that's going to bode well for both programs, because we know if they can have a symbiotic relationship there and benefit from each other, that'll move that sport forward exponentially.
Yeah, that fork that was once so wide, Goog's exactly right, is now closed in. Charlotte Caslick showed how you can do it. And I think Sydney's another perfect example of it. You know, you add in Nicole Leddington, who's going to start at fly half. 2 young girls, really excited for this opportunity to play against Fiji, who, let's remember, are no slouch. They're a great team. This will be a very physical
test footy.
And test footy early in the year.
You talk about sevens players referencing the ones in the sevens program coming across to 15s. We've also seen it going back the other way a little bit. Maya Stewart, who will start on one wing for the Wallaroos tomorrow, got the opportunity to join the sevens squad, and she made her sevens debut earlier this year in Singapore and showed that even in sevens she's a try-scoring freak.
Can score a try. Yeah, absolutely unbelievable finisher. Look for her striding out along GIO Stadium. Desi Miller on the bench as well. We know she can score tries as well. There's some firepower in that team, Goog.
Yeah, it's cohesion, there's planning, there's athleticism. Wallaroos are going to win the game. They just, Matt Stewart loves to play the game, loves to be in open space. All the things that are good about Test rugby and intensive professional standard rugby, you're seeing that.
All right, who wins tomorrow? Wallaroos and Fijiana.
Wallaroos.
Yeah, Wallaroos.
Comfortable, or are you expecting another tight one?
Comfortable.
I think it'll be the last 20 minutes they'll run away with it. It's going to be a very physical game. That first 40 will be high-level intensity.
As Goog said, Test footy. How good to have it back. So good to have it back. We look forward to bringing that match to you tomorrow, both on 9 and on Stan Sport from 4:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. Massive weekend of rugby coming your way, and then the boys on Between Two Posts will wrap it up for you on Monday. Bye for now.